The cuffs bit into her wrists, cold and unyielding. As the officer's voice barked through the evening air, "Stop resisting!" Judge Amara Ellis didn't resist. She stood still, her heart pounding, her mind racing with the absurdity of it all. A crowd gathered, phones raised. Capturing the moment, a black woman in a tailored blazer was pinned against a squad car for looking suspicious outside her own courthouse. Amara's day had started like any other. At 42, she was the youngest judge in Clayton County, Georgia. A woman who'd clawed her way through systemic barriers to sit on the bench. Her reputation was ironclad. Fair, unflinching, a beacon of justice in a town where trust in the system hung by a thread. But now, as Officer Daniel Hargrove twisted her arm, none of that mattered. To him, she was just another face, another body to control. The irony burned. Here she was, arrested by the very officers whose case she'd preside over tomorrow. The call had come at 6 p.m. Amara was leaving the courthouse, her heels clicking on the marble steps, when she noticed a commotion in the parking lot. A young black man, no older than 20, was on the ground, surrounded by Officers Hargrove and Michael Tate. Their voices were sharp, accusing him of loitering, though his backpack and textbooks suggested he was just a student heading home. Amara's instincts kicked in. She'd seen this scene too many times, racial profiling dressed up as law enforcement. She approached, calm but firm, her judicial badge clipped to her blazer. "Officers, what's the situation here?" she asked, her tone measured but carrying the weight of her authority. Hargrove barely glanced at her. "Ma'am, step back. This doesn't concern you." "It does when it's happening outside my courthouse," she replied, her voice steady. "I'm Judge Amara Ellis. Let's de-escalate this." The name didn't register with Hargrove. His face hardened, and he stepped closer, his hand resting on his holster. "I said step back, or you're under arrest for obstruction." The crowd murmured, phones recording every second. Amara's pulse quickened, but she didn't flinch. She knew the law better than anyone here. She wasn't obstructing. But she also knew the reality. Her title, her robe, her years of education meant nothing to a man who saw only her skin. "Officer, I'm not obstructing. I'm ensuring this young man's rights are respected." That's when it happened. Hargrove grabbed her arm, yanking her toward the squad car. The crowd gasped. Tate, younger and less certain, hesitated, his eyes darting between his partner and Amara. "Dan, maybe we should," he started, but Hargrove cut him off. "She's interfering. Cuff her." The metal clicked around Amara's wrists, and for a moment, time slowed. She felt the weight of history, the countless black men and women who'd faced this same humiliation, their dignity stripped by those sworn to protect. But Amara wasn't just anyone. She was a judge, and tomorrow, these officers would face her in court for a misconduct case that could end their careers. The irony was almost poetic. As they pushed her into the squad car, Amara's mind raced. She thought of her father, a civil rights lawyer who'd taught her to fight with words, not fists. She thought of the young man still on the ground, his eyes wide with fear. And she thought of the courtroom, her courtroom, where justice was supposed to prevail. This wasn't just about her, it was about every person who'd been judged by their skin before their character. At the station, the air was thick with tension. Hargrove processed her like any other suspect, oblivious to the storm brewing. Tate, however, was uneasy. He'd caught a glimpse of her badge when they'd searched her bag, and now he was scrolling through his phone, his face paling as he read her bio on the county website. "Dan," he whispered. She's Judge Ellis." Hargrove froze, his pen hovering over the booking form. "What?" "She's the judge. The one handling our case tomorrow." The room seemed to shrink. Hargrove's bravado cracked, replaced by a flicker of panic. Amara sat calmly, her wrists still cuffed, her gaze piercing. "You might want to uncuff me now," she said, her voice low but commanding. "Unless you want to explain this in my courtroom." The uncuffing was swift, accompanied by stammered apologies. But Amara wasn't interested in their regret. She stood, brushing off her blazer, and walked out of the station without a word. The crowd outside had grown, their phones still recording, their voices chanting for justice. Amara didn't acknowledge them. She had a bigger stage to command. The next morning, the courtroom was packed. Word of the arrest had spread like wildfire, amplified by viral videos and outraged posts on X. Reporters lined the back, their cameras trained on the bench where Amara would soon sit. Hargrove and Tate stood before her, their uniforms crisp but their faces drawn. They'd been accused of excessive force in a prior arrest, and now, their own actions last night had turned the case into a spectacle. Amara entered, her robe flowing, her expression unreadable. The room fell silent. She took her seat, her eyes scanning the crowd before settling on the officers. "Officers Hargrove and Tate," she began, her voice clear and resonant. "You stand accused of misconduct, but before we proceed, let's address the events of last night." The gallery buzzed. Hargrove shifted uncomfortably, his jaw tight. Tate looked like he wanted to disappear. Amara continued, her words deliberate. "Last night, you arrested me without cause, assuming I was a threat based on nothing but prejudice. You didn't see a judge, you saw a black woman, and that was enough to justify your actions." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "This case isn't just about you. It's about a system that allows these assumptions to persist, a system that dehumanizes and divides. But it's also about accountability. You swore an oath to protect, yet you violated that oath not just last night, but in the incident that brought you here." The evidence was damning. Body cam footage from their prior arrest showed excessive force against a black teenager, eerily similar to the scene Amara had witnessed. Testimonies from witnesses painted a pattern of aggression, particularly toward people of color. Amara listened, her face impassive, but inside, she burned with resolve. This wasn't just a trial, it was a reckoning. As the day wore on, Hargrove's defiance crumbled. He took the stand, his voice shaking as he tried to justify his actions. "I was just doing my job," he said. But the words sounded hollow. Tate, when questioned, admitted to doubts about Hargrove's methods, but said he'd felt pressured to follow along. The admission hung heavy in the air. Amara leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "Officer Tate, doing your job doesn't mean blindly following orders. It means upholding justice, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." The trial stretched into the afternoon, each moment building toward a verdict that would ripple beyond the courtroom. Amara knew her decision would be scrutinized, debated, and possibly vilified. But she also knew her purpose. She wasn't just a judge, she was a symbol of what justice could be. A black woman wielding power in a system that had tried to break her. When the time came, she delivered her ruling with unwavering clarity. "Officers Hargrove and Tate, you are found guilty of misconduct. You will be suspended without pay, pending further investigation, and required to undergo extensive retraining. But more than that, you must confront the biases that led us here. Justice demands accountability, and it starts with you." The courtroom erupted, some in cheers, others in murmurs of dissent. Amara didn't flinch. She'd made her stand not just for herself, but for the young man in the parking lot, for the teenager in the body cam footage, for every person who'd been judged before they were heard. As she left the bench, a young woman approached her, tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she whispered. "My brother was the kid in that video. You gave him hope." Amara nodded, her throat tight. "Hope's just the start," she said. "We keep fighting." The courthouse steps were a gauntlet of cameras and shouted questions as Amara descended. Her robe replaced by a navy suit, her expression resolute. The verdict had ignited Clayton County. X was ablaze with hashtags Justice for Amara, and profiling, while local news ran loops of the parking lot arrest. Some called her a hero. Others branded her biased, a judge who'd let personal vendettas taint her ruling. Amara ignored the noise. She'd learned long ago that justice wasn't about applause, it was about truth. Back at her office, she sank into her chair, the weight of the day pressing against her temples. Her assistant, Maya, knocked softly, holding a stack of letters and a steaming mug of tea. "You're trending," Maya said, half smiling. "Also, the DA wants a meeting." Says the officers' union is pushing back hard. Amara sighed, rubbing her eyes. Let them push. They don't get to rewrite what happened. The officers' union wasted no time. By evening, they'd filed a formal complaint, accusing Amara of prejudice against law enforcement. Hargrove, emboldened by their support, gave a press interview, claiming he'd been unfairly targeted. She's got an agenda, he said, his voice dripping with defiance. This was personal, not professional. Tate, however, stayed silent, his absence from the media storm speaking louder than words. Amara watched the interview on her phone, her jaw tight. Hargrove's words stung, but they weren't surprising. She'd seen this playbook before. Deflect, deny, demonize. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. They'll try to break you, Amara. Stand Tala. She turned off the phone and opened her laptop, drafting a statement for the press. She wouldn't let Hargrove's narrative take root. Her statement was concise but searing. Last night, I was arrested without cause, judged not by my actions but by my skin. Today, I judged officers Hargrove and Tate by their actions, not their badges. Justice isn't personal, it's universal. I stand by my ruling and by the truth. The response was immediate. Supporters flooded her inbox with messages of gratitude, while critics accused her of overstepping her role. A local activist group organized a rally outside the courthouse, chanting her name alongside calls for systemic reform. Amara didn't attend. She wasn't here for the spotlight. Instead, she met with the young man from the parking lot, Jamal, who'd been released without charges after her intervention. Jamal sat across from her in a community center, his hands fidgeting. I thought I was done for, he said, his voice low. Nobody's ever stepped in like that for me. Amara leaned forward, her eyes warm but firm. You're not invisible, Jamal. Not to me, not to anyone who cares about what's right. Keep studying. You've got a future. He nodded, a flicker of hope in his eyes. As he left, Amara felt a quiet pride. This was why she'd fought for the bench, not for power, but for moments like this, where justice wasn't just a word but a lifeline. The next week was a firestorm. The officers' union escalated their complaint, demanding Amara's recusal from future cases involving law enforcement. The DA, caught between public pressure and political allies, urged her to take a leave of absence to let things cool down. Amara refused. Cooling down means letting injustice simmer, she told him. I'm not going anywhere. She doubled down, diving into her caseload with relentless focus. But the weight of the scrutiny was heavy. At home, her husband, Marcus, noticed the strain. Over dinner, he reached for her hand. You don't have to carry this alone, Amara. You're shaking the system, let it shake back a little. She squeezed his hand, a faint smile breaking through. I didn't start this fight, Marcus, but I'm not running from it. The community was divided. At a town hall meeting, voices clashed. Some praised Amara's courage. Others argued she'd abused her power. A white retiree stood, his voice trembling with anger. Those officers were just doing their job. You're making them villains. Across the room, a black mother shot back. Their job isn't to harass innocent people. My son could have been next. The room erupted, and Amara, seated in the front row, felt the divide like a physical ache. She took the podium, uninvited but undeterred. This isn't about villains or heroes, she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. It's about accountability. Officers Hargrove and Tate broke trust, not just mine, but this community's. We rebuild that trust by facing the truth, not hiding from it. Her words didn't unify the room, but they shifted the air. A few nodded, others whispered, and one man in the back clapped slowly, then louder, until a ripple of applause spread. It wasn't universal, but it was enough. The turning point came unexpectedly. Tate, the quieter officer, requested a private meeting with Amara. She agreed, meeting him in a neutral conference room at the courthouse. He looked different without his uniform, smaller, almost vulnerable. I messed up, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. Not just that night with you, but before. I saw Hargrove push too far and I didn't stop him. I want to make this right. Amara studied him, searching for sincerity. She saw it in his eyes, the same doubt she'd noticed in the parking lot. Making it right starts with owning it, she said. Not just to me, but to everyone you've hurt. Tate nodded, his hands clasped tightly. I'm testifying against Hargrove. He's been at this for years, targeting people, mostly black, mostly young. I've got records, body cam logs. I'll give you everything. It was a risk for Tate, career suicide, maybe worse. But it was also a crack in the wall, a chance to chip away at the system's rot. Amara didn't trust him fully, but she trusted his fear of being complicit any longer. Do it, she said. Not for me, for them. Tate's testimony changed everything. The logs he provided exposed a pattern of misconduct stretching back years, implicating Hargrove and others in the department. The DA, now under pressure from the public and the evidence, launched a full investigation. Hargrove was placed on indefinite leave, his badge stripped pending review. The community watched, some cheering, others decrying a witch hunt. Amara stayed above the fray, letting the evidence speak. Months later, the case reached a quiet resolution. Hargrove resigned, facing potential criminal charges. Tate, demoted but still employed, enrolled in a reform program Amara had advocated for, one that paired officers with community mentors to rebuild trust. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. The young man from the body cam footage, DeAndre, received a settlement and enrolled in college, his mother sending Amara a handwritten thank you note. Amara kept that note on her desk, a reminder of why she endured. The threats hadn't stopped, anonymous letters, hateful comments online, but neither had her resolve. She spoke at schools, met with activists, and pushed for policy changes, like mandatory de-escalation training and civilian oversight boards. Clayton County was changing, slowly, painfully, but undeniably. One evening, as she walked to her car, she saw Jamal waiting by the courthouse steps. He held a textbook, his smile shy but proud. I got an A on my midterm, he said. Thought you'd want to know. Amara's heart swelled. I'm proud of you, Jamal. Keep going. As he walked away, she looked at the courthouse, its silhouette stark against the sunset. She'd been tested here, humiliated here, but she'd also reclaimed her power here. The fight wasn't over, it never would be. But every step forward, every life touched, was a victory. The story of Amara Ellis spread far beyond Clayton County. It sparked debates in homes, on X, in classrooms. Was she a crusader for justice or a judge too entangled in her own experience? Was the system broken, or were a few bad actors the problem? These questions lingered, challenging everyone to weigh what's right, what's wrong, and what justice truly means in a divided world.